Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload we'll be talking about this potential Christmas winter storm, Christmas blizzard. It's a bit uncertain what will come of this. It could have several phases of being a winter storm, so definitely an interesting scenario. Models are still disagreeing, but regardless of how this snowstorm plays out, cold air will follow this, and there's just a lot to cover. But I think a good portion of the United States may see a white Christmas because of this snowstorm. So let's get right into that. Before we do, however, if you guys enjoy this channel, consider subscribing, consider liking the video. It really helps out, and especially if you are a returning viewer, liking the video would be awesome. Anyone that would like that would be awesome. Otherwise, let's get into this. Alright, so let's start off by looking at the European model. This model is usually considered the very best of all models on the weather community, and honestly I would have to agree. Usually I look at the European model with the greatest kind of weighing, if you will, of my forecast. And unfortunately, with the past several snowstorms, well, it did a really good job with the nor'easter. If you recall, it was one of the few models that forecasted it very early on. But ever since then, it's been doing a really standard job comparable to the rest of the models. So it feels like as if almost we are lost in between these models. And the level of unconfidence between them and diversity, if you will, so few days out is a bit concerning. But nevertheless, let's get into this. So notice that we have a potential, we do have a snowstorm, a winter storm, a rainstorm, depending on where you live and where you're located. For much of Canada, it will be more of a snowy scenario, but then look into the Washington, Oregon area, we see quite a bit of snow, some rain, very heavy snow across the mountains, and I think they did have flood watches and flood warnings. I don't know if they are still up. I would assume that they may be refreshed because of how much additional rain is on its way. The Northwest has seen a lot of precipitation, definitely above average, same with southwestern Canada, but that is a good thing. They have been dry. It would be good if this could slide just a bit further to the south where they need it even more, and they haven't been getting as much precipitation. However, there could be signs of that pattern, that area getting active. Notice as we push this towards the 22nd, right, so tomorrow afternoon, we have quite some heavy snow developing across much of southern Saskatchewan into Manitoba and Alberta. Again, people that are watching from the US may think this is irrelevant, but I do forecast for Canada as well. So just because a snowstorm may be more centered towards Canada doesn't mean it's invalid, especially since I do have quite a bit of viewers from Canada. So notice that as we push this forward, this low pressure gets pretty strong, and the main reason this thing is stronger than it actually seems is because of the high pressure working with it, and the winds with this system will definitely be the biggest story. The snow will be, obviously an aspect, though it won't be the main scenario. For example, with the nor'easter we saw across New England, it was the snow that was definitely the big deal. This time around, it could be the winds, and notice that we have very strong winds even way out in front of the system on the 23rd, on the Wednesday. These winds will be blowing from the south and west, so much of the plains on the 23rd may be in the 50s, 40s, obviously towards the north of 40s, 50s as you get towards maybe Iowa, Illinois, and even 60s, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, if not warmer. I could show you the temperatures. And this is what usually happens in front of low pressures, right? But obviously it varies on how strong the wind is, how slow the low pressure is. And in this case, the warm air does get pretty far north. And notice this is tomorrow, right? So we start seeing warmer temperatures towards the south already brewing. And then as we push this forward, I need to zoom out for a bit because that gives us a better view. Alright, so notice that as we push into early Wednesday morning, we start seeing temperatures very warm across much of the central and eastern United States, but we also see very cold temperatures move on into North Dakota, Minnesota, and South Dakota. So the contrast will be there, but obviously as notice 2 p.m. in, say, Chicago, Iowa, 50s, 40s, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio. And then notice that as we push this into just a day later, I mean, it's in the 20s and teens, especially the further north and west you go. But let's go back to this precipitation event, and let's take a look what the European does. So again, this is Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, and this is at around Tuesday 7 p.m. Notice much of the United States is snow-free, but the wind is just howling. Then this is now a Wednesday morning, Wednesday Wednesday around 7 o'clock in the morning, so already mid-morning hours. And notice that what we see is snow again continuing across much of southern Canada. We do see some rain developing. Again, the winds will be the biggest scenario. High-profile vehicles will be in very, very high danger from this system, as there could be winds that are just spanning anywhere from North Dakota, where it meets Canada, all the way to really Kentucky and Tennessee. So that will definitely be the big story. And obviously where the snow is falling, that will most likely lead to some blizzard conditions, if not blizzard warnings issued by the National Weather Service. And notice that we do see quite a bit of rainfall developing across much of the Ohio Valley down into the southern Mississippi area, the Mississippi River, and then eventually reaching Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas. That stretches and it continues to intensify. Notice what we see though is a lot of obviously snow and wind on the backside. Again, the snow won't be astronomically high. There could be some double-digit amounts, but those will be rather scarce, it seems. And this is just one model portrayal, the European. And notice that as this tracks towards the north, they kind of split. We have a cold front, right, that is raging. I mean, it has a lot of precipitation, lots of rain for the south, quite a bit of snow for Canada. Again, the snowfall ratios will be very high as cold air will be present. But notice that as we push this forward into Thursday, really through midday into the evening hours, afternoon and evening hours, we see that cold air catch up to this precipitation. It starts interacting with the Atlantic Ocean, not just the Gulf, and we see a new low pressure start to form out of this strong lift from the jet stream. And what that does is, look at that, we have a 996 millibar low pressure, right? It doesn't have the wind component nearly as much as what this one did, right? This one has just wicked winds. This one will be blustery, but definitely not as windy. And notice that into Thursday at around 7 o'clock, probably Kentucky, Tennessee getting some snow, maybe even to northern Georgia, Alabama. Again, this is just one model. And notice that as we push into the northeast, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, see very heavy rain. And depending on where it is exactly located or how the storm will behave, we start seeing some snow transition over. And you can see that as this rain pushes further into the northeast, it's pretty heavy rain. And let's take a glance in and notice more precipitation moving on to the coast. And as I was mentioning, California, Nevada, Utah could be getting some more activity. So you can see some light rain there, a full-fledged snows or rainstorm, a system just slamming into the west coast. So definitely activity there, and you can see continued activity across the east. All right, let's take a glance at the total accumulated precipitation. So this is not snowfall, this is just rainfall and snow, all in liquid form. Let's take this through one day after Christmas. Notice the northwest, again, very heavy rainfall amounts or snowfall amounts. I'll show you those in just a bit. Notice there's lesser amounts, obviously, towards the plains, but this will be falling as snow. And notice that as we push into the northeast, very heavy rain or snow, depending again on how fast that transition occurs and how much cold air is available, or whether or not, this system takes a slower track. All right, so let's take a look at the snowfall outlook. Again, this is one model, and I do want to emphasize that there are many other models showing quite different things, which I'll try going over as much as possible. So this is the European. Again, this mainly occurs across the upper plains into Wednesday and really Tuesday and Wednesday, right? Notice we have a wave of snow, a band of snow that develops across Minnesota, possibly Iowa, seeing White Christmas. Definitely a White Christmas out of this. Again, these are assuming 10-to-1 snowfall ratios. These amounts over here will be much higher. This will not be falling at a 10-to-1 ratio. It will be probably at a 15, if not a 20-to-1 ratio. So you could almost double these amounts. And same goes here, right? If you look into Ohio, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia, right? Those are more of a 10-to-1 ratio events, and this is kind of that second wave of the system. Notice, still, even assuming that 10-to-1 ratio, very heavy snow across Canada into possibly Toronto, right? And into portions of the lakes. By the way, the Great Lakes will be seeing lots of snow, lake effect snow, because the cold air that drives this storm out of here will then fetch the winds from the north and west, producing lake effect. And then notice that in the longer range, there is quite a bit more chances for some snow. Finally, maybe even getting into portions of Missouri, places where there hasn't been much snow. Notice that the northwest also, again, seeing increasing amounts of snow and a very active pattern even after this system. occurs. So let's take a glance at the GDPS. All right, so this is the Canadian. Again, the timing is relatively similar, so I will just go over the snowfall amounts, as otherwise I won't be able to fit as much models as I would like in here, just to give you an average look. So again, it moves on to the northwest, right, tonight into Tuesday, into Wednesday, kind of starting to pull away into portions of the Midwest. Let's take a look at the Kuchera amounts, right, as that will give us a more accurate view. Again, you can see that quickly increases these amounts quite a bit higher with the more accurate snowfall ratio. Again, sometimes the Kuchera does put out amounts that are slightly higher than expected, but with an event like this where it's very cold, I think that they're more accurate. Notice what the Canadian does is a similar band develops that the European did. If you recall, the European developed it more across Iowa and into Wisconsin. But sorry, for a second I thought I paused the video there. Into Wisconsin, right? This one develops it a bit further towards the north, but still, you can see the Arrowhead getting slammed. Duluth, potentially very heavy snow into portions of North Dakota, South Dakota, possibly seeing that white Christmas again, much of Minnesota, Wisconsin. There's a lot of models disagreeing on this band right here. We'll just have to wait and see how this unfolds. Look at this. The Canadian shows quite a bit of snow and a lake effect snow, more so than the GFS across the plains, across Michigan into the UP of Michigan, into Ohio, Erie, for example, Buffalo, seeing some maybe foot plus amounts. And then notice into even Kentucky, Tennessee, seeing that snow. And taking a look now at the GFS model, right? So the GFS model has been doing a very good job with this storm, right? It was the first one to kind of show the system developing in a way that now most models agree with. And it's continued to be kind of the leader. So again, the GFS does sometimes outperform the European, and I think this may be one of those cases. So let's take this and time this out. Here we have the time, December 23rd, 12 a.m. So, you know, a day, 2 days before Christmas. We start seeing snow across much of southern Canada, right? So again, Winnipeg, a lot of these cities centered across these locations will be seeing quite a bit of heavy snow, right? And as we push this forward, notice obviously the winds intensify. We start seeing that southern component mix into this. And what we see with that is, again, that band of snow that the European and Canadian pretty well agree on, developing across much of Minnesota, Dakota, so that would lead to a white Christmas. It would be wind whipped. This snow would be whipped around quite a bit. So again, taking an accurate measurement or having a nice layer of snowfall may be a bit hard to get. But notice that as this pushes off, we see a continued very heavy snow across the Arrowhead into much of Ontario, central Ontario, even into portions of northern Ontario there. And we see this cold front developing, and a GFS has been a strong component of developing this very large cold front. And notice it does have that mixing in with snow as early as Indiana, Ohio. And again, as I mentioned, there could be a chance for snow into portions of northern Alabama and Georgia. While I don't think there will be an inch of snow, it's a possibility, and I do think that some snow showers may be falling on Christmas Eve. Notice that passes through, right? Just to the north, but we'll have to see. Then Tennessee, Kentucky, obviously seeing pretty heavy snow with the GFS model. This is just one model, I want to emphasize. And then it kind of re-intensifies this, and notice it takes heavy snow into New York, Pennsylvania, much of Virginia, Maryland, right? And it intensifies this further with more lake effect snow ongoing right there. So definitely a eventful storm out of this. And again, many components to this, some seeing rain, some seeing snow. And for an accurate depiction of the snowfall amounts, I will show you this model, right, the GFS same model, but on this website, as this includes the Kuchera, which I think will be more applicable with this system. So let's take this towards the 27th, really right there. So this is what expected. Notice Northwest obviously sees a lot, southern Canada, the southern Canadian plains, quite a bit of snow. And then notice into Ontario, we see a ton of snow into the Arrowhead of Minnesota, potentially quite a bit. Minneapolis, maybe 2 to 5 inches. They do have a winter storm watch across North Dakota and South Dakota now into portions of Minnesota. Again, mainly because of the wicked winds. The snowfall amounts a bit lighter, 1 to 5 inches seems reasonable. And then notice the lakes, obviously seeing quite a bit right there by Lake Erie. And Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, and Lake Michigan, the UP. And then we have that band of snow right there. You could see basically, you know, looking at the snowfall accumulations, we could see where these two phases are. One phase is pretty much this part, right? And then the other phase is this part of the storm. So, I mean, definitely an interesting scenario. But notice that second wave may bring snow into Kentucky, Tennessee. While it won't be a heavy snowfall, it looks as if there could be 3 to 4 inches, especially towards the mountains, if not more. Now notice portions of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, quite a bit of snowfall as well, 8-9 inches with the Kuchera amounts. Not all models agree, but again, I do think the GFS has the best handle on this. Taking a glance at models like the NAM, these are high-res models, right? They are supposedly, they don't go out far, but they have a better accurate measurement of what's going on. Now, this is just through the 84-hour time frame. Again, very heavy snow across Canada. It does not show quite a bit across Minnesota whatsoever, which again is misleading us quite a bit, and everyone trying to forecast the storm, as the global models are showing quite a good swath across Minnesota, the Dakotas, and into Wisconsin, the Northwoods, if you will. And then high res like the NAM, it really doesn't advocate that. Now again, the NAM did a very good job with the nor'eastern and the previous system across Wisconsin and Iowa, right? But unfortunately, it has not done a good job across, I'm saying that, I lost my train of thought there. Sorry, my cat just jumped on the couch and I got a bit caught off guard by that, but notice that what I'm saying is the NAM did a really good job with the nor'easter and the system that occurred across the, Wisconsin and Iowa a few days prior to that. But otherwise, the NAM usually is not regarded as a ridiculously good model, if good at all. To be frank with you, and then if we were to take a look at its radar display, I already showed you the amounts. Notice again, a powerful northwestern storm, right, moves into southern Canada. They see quite a bit of snow, but it does not develop this secondary area of precip. And again, the NAM has been jumping around quite a bit, obviously indicating towards inconsistency and inaccuracy. It does develop that second cold front and have some snow mixing in. Not a lot, and really the least out of most models. But again, it takes us through 84, which is only when it starts to begin developing the second wave. But if upstate New York, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, Michigan all get caught up within this band of snow, an hour or two would be enough to give this a white Christmas, or even 3 hours, an inch to 2 inches. And obviously some of these amounts may be higher, especially if this lobe of air kind of stalls out and this system kind of rides it just to the vertical pretty much into portions of southern Canada. Some pretty heavy snow as well, obviously. Now, I think the RDPS, or the RGEM, is doing a remarkably better job at this. And if you're to play this out, notice what we see is pulling away a bit of precipitation, a clipper, right? But we have a northwest system move on, right, into southern Canadian plains, lots of snow, insanely strong winds, right? And we start seeing that component, the backside component, develop much more elegantly and much more, profoundly, if you will, comparable to the global models, and into Minnesota, Minneapolis, Duluth, maybe even into portions of central North Dakota and South Dakota, seeing that heavy amounts of snow, or just heavy amounts of snow in order to see that white Christmas, 1, 3, 4, or 5 inches. And we do see that very powerful cold front develop, right? This is, again, a high res, looking very similar to the GFS. And it starts transitioning that snowfall over, or that rain to snow. Now, the RGEM is reluctant to do it quite early, unlike the GFS, which, again, develops it pretty early. But it does eventually produce quite a swath of snow out of this, and notice it grows quite a bit in strength, and this system is just loaded with precipitation. Now, again, cities like Toronto, like southern Canadian cities, start off with lots of rain, right? But eventually, if the system forms, like, say, the GFS says it will, they could be in for a pretty large snowfall event. Let's take a look at Kuchera and take it through our 84. Notice Minneapolis, right on the border between 3, maybe 5, even higher amounts of snow. Southern Canadian plains quite a bit, and then into portions of the lakes. Michigan right there, that's, again, not all of the snow that will fall. I think there could be amounts up to a foot across Michigan from the lake effect. And notice some pretty heavy amounts, but obviously this is mainly from that second, that cold front wave. Whether or not this extends into Kentucky, Tennessee more vigorously, we'll have to see. Again, further east and north you go into Kentucky and Tennessee, you have the greater chances. Virginia, you could see the little boot, if you will. I don't know what they call it, the little panhandle of Virginia, also seeing a potential for that snow. Now, I do want to quickly go over back to the GFS, as I think that has the best handle, right? And I feel like I did not focus on the Canadian cities enough. Again, Toronto potentially seeing snow depending on which model you look at, but with that second cold front, right, kind of developing into its own system, I think that, Montreal, Ottawa, or Quebec, Montreal, Ottawa, all these larger cities here are under the gun for some heavier amounts, maybe 7 to 8, 10 inches, which in terms of centimeters 10 inches would be around, I think, 25 centimeters. So, anywhere from 15 to 25 centimeters, which I get it isn't a massive event, but it's significant, especially if the winds are going to be pretty strong with the second wave. Again, not as strong winds with this part as with this piece right here, but generally still a very large addition to that snow, making it pretty darn miserable. And I do want to mention, for those that live anywhere else across the country, it does start getting active for Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Illinois, Indiana. I counted 3 more systems just through January 6th that could be potentially significant after this system. So again, a lot of activity, and I think that will be the trend through most of this winter. Now, I think that's basically most of what I wanted to show you. I could show you the HER model, which goes out to 48 hours every once in a while, or every 6 hours to be exact. And really, that model does jump around quite a bit, and right now it's leaning something between what the NAM is showing and what the RDPS. Notice, not as profound a development of that system right there, but definitely still showing more precipitation than what the NAM showed. And again, I do think that with this HER model, we will start seeing upgrades or updates right throughout the next day or two, and we could start seeing this fill in. Again, I do think Minneapolis has a really good shot of seeing a white Christmas, and as you saw, I think this is the best representation. Anywhere you see that kind of that light blue color, you have a pretty good chance of seeing that white Christmas. Even portions of northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin may get some snow showers, maybe enough for 1 inch. I'm doubting it, but it's a potential. And then notice Michigan right into New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee. Quite a good chance of seeing that white Christmas into southern Canada, Minnesota, North Dakota. Again, the winds are the main story. And I do want to quickly show you the National Weather Service map to show you how much snow or what watches and warnings are up. And look at that, as if you were to take a glance at this, you would quickly notice that we have a lot of these brown colors. Now, that is not a dirt storm, but it's a wind storm, and that may kick up some dirt. Maybe a brown color, but those are wind. I think those are high wind warnings, and yeah, high wind warnings. So those are watches or warnings, either one, but they are a very they're going to be spreading through much of this country. I think much of the United States will be covered with these, at least advisories, or if not special weather statements because of this wind. So that's the biggest component. Notice right there, the Appalachian, also very strong winds. We already have some winter storm warnings issued, but that's for the Clipper event that's kind of going through there right now. These watches are for this weekend system, or this Christmas system, and then we have winter storm watches right there. Again, the snowfall amounts there alone aren't really enough for a winter storm watch. They're borderline, as they are calling for 1 to 4 inches, but the winds will make it worse, and if that seems to be the case, they will issue blizzard warnings. But for now, that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all guys on the next episode. See ya. Bye.